So in this video, I'm going to outline my ice cold content framework. It's a framework I put together basically for myself to guide me and remind me what I needed to be doing each day to move the needle and grow my business as a creator. Ultimately, I hope you'll find this valuable if you're in the content or coaching space. I find this useful personally, and so I thought I would share it with you guys. But before I dive in, hi, my name's Danny. I've been a writer and a creator for the last 8 years. I spent 6 of those years building a 6-figure content business that ended up getting millions of views a month. But then it basically all fell apart very quickly at the end of 2023 because of an algorithm update and a shadow ban that happened in very quick succession. So to cut a very long story short, I decided to pivot. I spent the next 18 months at this point learning everything I could to add to what I already knew about content creation and running online businesses, this time a more robust online business. So now I'm trying to rebuild by sharing everything I've learned over the years to help other creators build a simple, solo, robust online business that gives them freedom and autonomy, which for me has always been the main motivation in all of this. Anyway, I really appreciate you being here. If you get any value from this, please consider liking and subscribing for more. But back to ice cold content. What is it? Ice cold content is an acronym that stands for ideate, create, engage, capture, offer, live, deliver. It breaks down into 2 main parts. There's ICE, which is for building your audience and generating leads. And then there's cold, which is for converting those leads into customers and clients while also growing your brand. The purposes of this video is just to outline what each component involves. And so with that, let's turn to ideate. Ideas are kind of the lifeblood of any content business. Everything that you post stems from an idea. But then on the coaching or the mentoring side, the service side, people tend to buy into your ideas as much as or before they buy into you or buy the actual thing that you sell. That is why for me, a key part of growing as a creator is having an ideation process. It's for both of those key aspects. It's for the content creation side and also for having big ideas that help set you apart and attract people to you. The ideation process itself doesn't have to be fancy. Even just getting into the habit of capturing your ideas is going to put you one step ahead. You can just refer to your list of ideas, your idea bank, pick out the one which speaks to you and turn it into a piece of content. Another thing I like to do is sit down and find proven ideas. These are ideas that have performed well online in the past. And so I can sit down and make those ideas my own via a 5-step ideation process that I follow. If you want that, by the way, you can click the link in the description. It's free and it outlines the 5 steps I use to find, capture, and develop proven ideas to use in my content. And that leads us nicely onto number 2. Create. So while the idea is the lifeblood of any content business, the content itself is obviously what helps us connect with people, move people, share our story, market our products, and ultimately build our audience. However, not all content is created equal. Ironically, the ideation process that I just talked about helped me come up with the system that I use. I call it straight line content. It's another framework or a system designed to draw the straightest possible line from idea to results. Part of that is just making sure we're doing all the fundamentals right, like having a good hook, making sure we've made the content easy to consume, doing what we can to keep people on the post for as long as we can, whether it's a text post or a video post or whatever. But then the other aspect of it is doing something I call posting insights versus instructions. So one of the pitfalls I see creators falling into often is that in an effort to generate reach and engagement, they basically give away all their secrets. And in the process, they let people try before they buy and sort of remove some of the incentive for actually reaching out and working with you to get the desired outcome. So the idea here is that instead of telling people how to do things, that would be the instructions, we explain the what and the why. Like we give the insight. We show people that we have the instructions, but we don't necessarily share them online unless we're really trying to optimize for reach and engagement. So we do the fundamentals right, we post insights versus instructions, and then we filter everything through what I call PI. Again, it's another acronym. P is for philosophy, I is for issues, and E is for evidence. So if you're trying to sell anything online, whether it's a product or a service, for me, these are kind of 3 core buckets that impactful content falls into. Philosophy is kind of the things we believe, the perspectives that we have, why we see things the way we do, the way we solve common problems and how that differs to how other people do it, and why we solve things the way that we do. Issues. So this would be content around the common problems, the common issues that our audience faces, and sharing insights on how to address them. Then evidence is kind of posting content that shows that we've solved those issues for people in the past. In general, what you find is that the best content kind of weaves these three buckets together, kind of dips in and out of all of them. So in this video, for example, there will be elements of my philosophy, the way I think, the way I do things. So in the introduction, I mentioned that for me, it's all about time. I talked about wanting a robust business based on the fact that my last business died. And then I'm talking about issues. So some of what I'm going through in each section will be talking about the problems that people face and how Ice Cold content can address them. But the real core of what makes straight line content comes quite literally from drawing a line from your ideas to your offers. Let's say you have a central mechanism that you use to help people get a result in your space, and you've created a workshop or a course or a training video of some sort, a product of some sort around that mechanism, explaining that mechanism, walking people through it, how it works, and how to solve the problem it's associated with. You could create a post around why that mechanism exists in the first place. You could explain the issues that the mechanism solves, and then you'd post evidence, such as a case study or maybe a testimonial with some added context around how they got the result, that shows how you solved that specific problem with that mechanism in the past. And so you're not just posting at random here, you have a direct connection to something you could sell at the end of your post. So the next thing we can do is look to speed up the meaningful results we can get from that content by engaging with other people wherever we've posted that content. Engagement for me kind of breaks down into two parts. There's leaving thoughtful comments on other people's posts, and then there's reaching out to people via DM or email. For me, doing both of these is particularly helpful when you're newer and you're not yet getting inbound leads from your content. Anyone who's ever tried will know that getting the ball rolling as a creator is the hardest part. And so by leaving comments and sending DMs, you can speed up the process. But that aside, even if you're more established, if you want a quick way to get results without relying on inbound leads, leaving these comments and then sending DMs to people is a great way to expedite the process. By leaving thoughtful comments, people tend to follow you. They'll check out your profile and they'll often engage on your posts in return. You also meet some really cool people and make connections. You build up your network, but then open the door to sales conversations in the DMs as well. Like the downside of doing this, unless you are paying someone to do it for you, is that engagement of this nature isn't very scalable. But that's kind of par for the course when you're newer and you're building from the ground up. You have to do the unscalable things to eventually get the leverage you need to grow quicker. So that's ICE. That's kind of the audience and lead gen part of Ice Cold content. Next, we get into cold, and the C here is for capture. I've got a really vested interest in this part of the process. The goal here isn't just to create any content business, it's to create a robust content business, and that's largely based on what happened in my last one. When the Google update happened, the reason that was so catastrophic alongside the shadow ban is because I hadn't built an audience that I owned. I had a really significant audience at the time. I was getting tens of millions of views a month, but they all came through third parties. My mistake was thinking that I could rely on those platforms in my head, even though I knew that this was the case. At the time, it felt like an extra step. It felt like it was something that I would get to at some point in time, but it never quite felt like a priority. And so because I didn't own my audience, when the algorithm changed and when I got shadow banned, it was basically an off switch for my business. My income relied on the traffic from the audience. And so when that stopped, the revenue stopped as well. It was so it was pretty brutal. And it's why I'm really hot these days on building your email list. Until you have a list, until you capture people's details, and again, I know this all too well, it doesn't feel like it at the time, but you're walking on ice, and that ice is far thinner than you think. In this stage of the ice cold content process, we're focused on capturing people's details, capturing people's email addresses. And so we always have ownership of our audience. We're always in control of this aspect of things. And as a result, we're building something more robust that we can rely on and depend on. We're always going to have direct access to our audience. So even if we get kicked off a platform, even if an algorithm makes a change, an unfavorable change, which we suffer from, we know that we can still communicate with our audience, and we know that we can still run our business as a result. So on this point, I wanted to talk about a distinction that I draw. The people I work with, I talk about high agency creators. So the way I define this, it's just someone who has a simple, solo, robust online business that they can run in a few hours a day. It gives them their time back so they can fill their life with what they want to be doing and, have full control over where they are, what they're doing, and make great money from work that they love. So as part of this, I talk about the difference between building a well and having a water butt. A water butt or a rain barrel is great. It's easy to install. When it rains, water comes off the roof and fills up the barrel, and you have what you need to survive or whatever you need that water for. However, you're kind of stuffed in a drought because you have no control over where your water comes from. You're entirely dependent on a third party, in this case, the rain, the weather, and there's nothing you can do if it doesn't come. So that's why I encourage people to build a well. Obviously, it takes time, it's more work, it's effortful, but once you have it, you have a source of water that is yours and that you can draw from whenever you want. You've got direct access to your own source of water, which means even in a drought, even when things go wrong, you're going to be okay. So in practice, to build a well, we productize our skills and we build our email list. We're making connections on social, we're getting traction, and then we try and take people from social media into our email list. By doing so, you end up with an audience that you own, that is yours, and that can't be taken away from you. While you're building your list, we also work on number 5, which is offer. Again, remember, we're building our well, and one of the key pieces of that is that we're productizing our skills. That's kind of the key. We're not relying on brand deals, we're not relying on sponsorships. We are productizing our skills and selling products and selling services. This is the second piece to having a robust content business, to having a robust business as a creator. Again, in my last business, I relied on ad revenue. So when that traffic dried up, there was no lever I could pull. So in this new phase of my content business, I've lent heavily into productization, and I highly encourage other creators to do the same. If you're not already selling something, I think this is key. That's not to say that we don't or can't or shouldn't use the other monetization sources. It's just, in my mind, we shouldn't rely on them, because as soon as you're relying on something that you don't have control over, you're far more vulnerable than you might like to think, which again, I found out the hard way. So with that in mind, high agency creators productize themselves and package their skills into an online offer. We center everything around one core offer that solves a specific problem for a specific person. From there, we get on to number 6, which is live. So there's this quote from Whitney Cummings that I came across via Tim Ferriss that I really like and think about a lot, that goes, "For art to imitate life, you have to have a life." I know that I can be very guilty of wanting to get results in my business so much that I will spend every waking hour that I have sitting at my computer doing IC, E and C and O. But in the process, I'm living in the sense that I'm working, but I'm not doing much. I'm not actually living my life. And so the idea here is that by living your life, by doing stuff, you end up with a life that is interesting and worth sharing and puts you in motion. And so when you're in motion, when someone is in motion, when they're doing stuff, like anything that's moving, you're more likely to pay attention to it. From other people's perspective, you become more interesting and more worthy of attention because you're in motion, you're living your life and sharing it. You find inspiration, things to talk about in your content, and help sort of birth the big ideas that can become so central to moving your business forward and becoming central to your brand. But as much as anything else, this live piece is about inviting people into your world. By living, doing stuff, sharing it, finding the insights hiding within those stories. You show them what you're doing and bring them into your world. Then the final piece is that you're showing people by sharing your life who they can become if they work with you. So the key here is that you have full control over how much or how little you share. But even if you share the tiniest slither of your life online, you go from this random person on the internet trying to sell information to a human that people know, like, and trust. In the process, you kind of naturally set yourself apart because you're living your life by virtue of what's happening. It's unique, it's yours, no one else is living it. You should find that you start getting people reaching out as people start leaning into the transformation that you're now showing and demonstrating versus just selling. For me, building a personal brand is absolutely key these days. In a world of AI, where information has been commoditized, none of us can afford to rely on information anymore, regardless of how expert you are, regardless of how much experience you have. I think without the personal branding piece, you're probably more vulnerable than you think, especially as time goes by and AI continues to get better. The good news is that as that happens, I think more and more people are going to be craving real human connection, craving people they can trust, craving a community that they can join and feel part of and that makes them feel human. But anyway, that's for another time. The final piece of Ice Cold content is deliver. So you have your offer, you have your clients, you're living your life, you're creating content, you're sharing it online, building your brand. And so the final thing, the final piece of the Ice Cold content flywheel is deliver. In high agency creators, I encourage people to deliver via an offer ladder. So remember, we're trying to build a simple, lean, robust online business that makes great money with a low delivery burden, so that you've still got plenty of white space in your day to live your life and enjoy your freedom and do things on your terms. So the offer ladder is kind of the core mechanism that enables this. It's our one core offer, but then at each rung, each step up on the ladder, we're selling a different level of proximity for a higher price point. And most creators have what's called a value ladder. So on the x-axis, you've got value, on the y-axis, you've got price. Creators will have multiple offers that they're selling. So they might have a freebie, a low ticket product like an ebook, a mid ticket course, a high ticket course, and a community maybe. And then at the top, they'll have like an ultra high ticket mastermind group or something. So they're separate offers. It's multiple offers operating for a set period of time and at a set price point. The idea is that you're ascending your audience through from the cheapest levels through to the priciest offers that you have. Although it kind of makes sense, although it obviously works because people do it, there are a couple of problems, namely the complexity of having multiple separate individual parts, each of which you're trying to sell. But then the main one for me is that you're leaving money on the table. At any point in that kind of ascension, people can just drop off. Let's say someone buys your low ticket product. They may well have the resources and the desire to buy into your high ticket course or your mastermind. But let's say you didn't keep track of the sale, or they just weren't aware of the other options, or they get what they wanted and then find someone else who's offering something similar and just go with them instead. You can lose out on the potential revenue that they would otherwise give you. So it's also more complicated because having the different moving parts means that, let's say you want to improve every offer on your ladder, it means you have to go into each one individually, which is going to divide your energy up between them. This is why we do an offer ladder instead. We sell our one offer, but then we have those different dynamic levels of proximity. And so with more levels of proximity, it's a higher price, but for more support, which means quicker results, and vice versa. And so we're all working towards the same outcome, but the different rungs stack. So those paying for the higher levels of proximity get everything below it, whereas those in the lower rungs just get what's at that level. And so by selling everyone into the lower rungs, you can maximize how many people join because cheap things always sell in higher numbers. But then once they're in, they can get access to more of you by paying for it. And so you end up tapping into those clients who have more resources, who want fast results, and who are willing to pay for them. This is what can enable you to operate in a few hours a day, because at those lower tiers where you have most of your clients, your delivery burden is super low. Whereas at the higher levels of proximity, people are getting more of you for a higher fee and getting faster results in the process. But naturally, there will be fewer people at those rungs, which again means that your delivery burden isn't going up too much. You end up with a really efficient, robust, leveraged business that makes great money with a limited amount of time. So anyway, that is ice cold content. I'll post more in-depth videos on some of the different elements in due course. But I hope you found this overview useful. If you've been feeling stuck or unsure on how to proceed, if you've been seeking more clarity, or if you've just been looking for a framework to use that can help funnel your energy in the right direction, then I hope this has been useful. Don't forget to check out the ideation process again in the description. And if you want to see an example of how that process works, you can check this video next.